the golden boy who became a tyrant. He watched his mother starve to death on a prison island. He watched his brothers dragged away in chains, never to return. And the man who destroyed his entire family, the emperor himself, then invited the boy to come live with him. For 6 years, young Caligula slept under the same roof as his family's killer, smiled at his jokes, ate at his table, let the mask slip. Finally died, Rome celebrated. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The story of Gaius, Julius, Caesar, Augustus, Germanicus, known to history as Caligula, is a story that begins not in the marble halls of power, but in the mud and blood of a military camp on the edge of the known world. A story of a golden child shaped by trauma, of a promising ruler shattered by sickness, and of a descent into a tyranny so bizarre, so cruel, that it would echo through the centuries as a warning of absolute power corrupted by an absolute mind. The scene on the Rhine frontier in the year 14. The air is cold, sharp with the scent of pine and wood smoke, churned mud under the boots of 10,000 legionaries. A toddler in a miniature soldier's uniform, his tiny boots crunching on the frost. The soldiers of the 14th Legion adored him. Caligula, little boots. He was the son of their idol, the magnificent General Germanicus, a man whose popularity rivaled the emperor's himself, was everything Rome dreamed of in a hero, handsome, brilliant in battle, and fiercely loyal. His wife, Agrippina the Elder, of Augustus, the first emperor. The son Gaius, our Caligula, was born into a dynasty of unmatched prestige and public adoration. For the first 7 years of his life, Prince of the Legions, a symbol of Rome's martial future. In the autumn of the year 19, in the distant city of Antioch, everything shattered, arrived in Rome with word that Germanicus was dead. The official cause was illness, but the whispers were immediate and venomous. Poison. Was Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso, the governor of Syria and a loyalist to the reigning emperor Tiberius. Before he could be brought to trial, by his own hand. The Roman people were convinced Tiberius had ordered the murder of their beloved hero. The stage was now set for a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. A paranoid and reclusive ruler saw Germanicus's family not as grieving relatives, but as a political threat. Agrippina was fiercely protective of her children's legacy. She was a living reminder of a bloodline purer than Tiberius's own. So the emperor began to systematically dismantle her world. Agrippina's eldest sons, Nero Caesar and Drusus Caesar, were arrested on trumped-up charges of conspiracy. Nero was exiled to the island of Pontia, where he was either starved to death or forced to take his own life. Was imprisoned in a dungeon beneath the imperial palace on the Palatine Hill. Historian Tacitus records that he was so desperate for food that he tried to eat the stuffing from his mattress. Alone and in darkness, their mother, Agrippina, was banished to the barren rock of Pandateria, flogged by a centurion until one of her eyes was destroyed. She refused to eat, and in the year 33, she died of starvation, a deliberate act of defiance against the emperor who had taken everything from her. All of this, the youngest son, Caligula, watched and learned. He was summoned from the ashes of his family to the island of Capri, in the gilded cage of Emperor Tiberius's villa. Was a place of legend and horror. Perched on cliffs above the Tyrrhenian Sea, it was where Tiberius indulged his most depraved fantasies. Suetonius describes a labyrinth of pleasure chambers and a staff trained in every form of sexual deviance. Here, Caligula was schooled in survival, to laugh at the emperor's crude jokes. He learned to hide every flicker of grief, spark of hatred for the man who had murdered his mother and brothers. Say he never shed a tear in public for his family. He became, in essence, a perfect actor. So convincing that Tiberius reportedly once remarked that he was nursing a viper for the Roman people. The old emperor kept the boy close, to control him, perhaps to corrupt him. Caligula waited. His survival depended on his ability to please a monster. This was his formative education. This was the forge in which his character was tempered. 16th of March, in the year 37, Tiberius died at his villa in Misenum. He was 77 years old. Particularly that of Suetonius suggest Caligula and the Praetorian prefect Naevius Sutorius Macro hastened the end, said to have smothered the frail emperor with a pillow. Is truth or the dark gossip of later historians, the result was immediate. Macro rode to Rome and declared Caligula emperor, was met with an explosion of public joy. Rome had endured the grim, suspicious reign of Tiberius for 23 years. Now they had the son of Germanicus, the darling of the legions, the golden boy who had survived the tyrant's court. Philo of Alexandria, a contemporary, wrote that the world had found a new salvation. For the first 6 months seemed to fulfill that impossible promise. He was 24 years old, with energy and grace. He gave a heartfelt eulogy for Tiberius, praising the man who had destroyed his family of political theatre. He then proceeded to undo Tiberius's most hated policies. He recalled all exiles, the secret files on treason trials. He gave spectacular games, including a naval battle on an artificial lake, a cash bonus to every citizen in Rome. Slain family bringing the ashes of his mother and brothers back to Rome for a proper burial. The Senate, the people, the army, all were enthralled. An emperor. He was a phenomenon. He was, they believed, the best of them. And then, in the autumn of that very same year, of this new golden age crumbled, fell desperately ill. Modern historians, scrutinizing the symptoms described by ancient sources, speculate it was a severe brain infection, encephalitis. He suffered from violent seizures, insomnia, and hallucinations. For weeks, he hovered between life and death. Empire held its breath. Prayers were offered for his recovery. When he finally rose from his sickbed, the man who emerged was fundamentally. The affable young ruler was gone, was someone whose behavior would become a byword for madness and excess. The transformation was so stark, so complete, that those who witnessed it could only describe it as a possession, a literal loss of his mind. Signs were megalomaniacal. He began to declare himself a living god. He ordered a temple to be built for his own worship, staffed with priests, including his uncle Claudius, appear in public dressed as various deities. He would wear the costume of Jupiter, complete with a thunderbolt, and demand that people address him as such. He dressed as Venus, as Apollo, claimed direct communion with the moon goddess, conversing with her in the night. He even ordered that a statue of himself be placed in the temple in Jerusalem, a provocation that nearly sparked a Jewish revolt. infamous act of divine pretension involved his favorite horse, Incitatus. The animal was housed in a marble stable with an ivory manger. Caligula planned to make the horse a consul, the highest political office in Rome. Whether this was a grotesque joke, a deliberate humiliation of the senatorial class, or the genuine whim of a broken mind, we may never know, was clear. The emperor's will was now beyond reason, beyond law, beyond the gods themselves. Swollen by Tiberius's frugality, began to hemorrhage money. Caligula built 2 massive pleasure barges for Lake Nemi, palaces with marble floors, plumbing, and intricate mosaics. A temporary bridge of ships 3.5 miles long across the Bay of Baiae, just so he could ride his chariot across it for 2 days, wearing the breastplate of Alexander the Great, a farcical military campaign against Britain. He marched his legions to the cliffs of the English Channel, arrayed them in battle formation, ordered them to collect seashells as the spoils of the ocean, the plunder of Neptune. To the battle, hardened legionaries. It was the ultimate humiliation. Life became a weapon of terror. Conducted affairs with the wives of senators, then humiliated the husbands at banquets. He revived the treason trials his early reign had abolished, but now they were tools for confiscating wealth. A phrase that would define his reign, a chilling motto for a tyrant. Let them hate so long as they fear. In Rome shifted from adoration to a creeping, paralyzing dread. No one was safe. The Praetorian prefect Macro, him to power, was forced to commit suicide. Sister Drusilla, with whom rumors of an incestuous relationship swirled, died in the year 30. 8 was inconsolable. He declared her a goddess, Diva Drusilla, and made it a capital offense to laugh or bathe during the period of mourning. Of this one person, who might have anchored his humanity, seemed to sever his last connection to reality. His 4th wife, Melonia Cisonia, can't companion in his erratic behavior. She was older, already pregnant when he married her, and he would reportedly parade her naked before his friends. Devoted to her and to their infant daughter, Julia Drusilla, whom he would present to assemblies of soldiers as a symbol of his dynasty. 41, the conspiracy against him was wide and deep. It included disgraced senators, affronted military officers, his own trusted freedmen. The ringleader was Cassius Chaerea, a tribune of the Praetorian Guard. Chaerea was a hardened veteran who had endured personal humiliation from the emperor. Caligula mocked his supposedly effeminate voice, him vulgar passwords each day. For Chaerea, it was a matter of honor. The plot crystallized during the Palatine Games in late January. On the 24th of January, a day dedicated to the deified Augustus, Caligula was presiding over a series of theatrical performances in a temporary theater near the imperial palace. A lunch break, he decided to take a shortcut through a covered, underground corridor known as a cryptoporticus, on his way to the palace baths. Seize their moment. In the dim, echoing space beneath the Palatine Hill, Chaerea and his fellow tribunes cornered the emperor. Blow was Chaerea's, a sword strike to the neck. Then they all fell upon him. The ancient sources record 30 wounds. Lay dying, some of the assassins stabbed his groin, a final, symbolic act of vengeance. The news spread through the palace like wildfire. His loyal Germanic bodyguards arrived too late, killing several innocent senators in their furious search for the killers. Caligula's wife, Caesonia, was hunted down and murdered by a centurion. Their infant daughter, Julia Drusilla, was not spared, seized the child and dashed her head against a wall. Julian line of Germanicus was extinguished in a matter of hours. In the immediate aftermath, the Roman Senate convened, of an impossible return to the Republic. But power had already flowed to the barracks. While senators debated, Praetorian guardsmen ransacked the palace. One soldier, Gratus, found a man hiding behind a curtain in a darkened room. It was Claudius Caligula's 50-year-old uncle. The family scholar thought to be a harmless fool. The Praetorians, realizing a living emperor was their guarantee of status and pay, hoisted Claudius onto their shoulders and proclaimed him emperor. Dream died in that moment. The military had chosen, and Rome would have another Caesar. Reign had lasted 3 years, 10 months, and 8 days. It was a flash of lightning that illuminated a landscape of utter darkness. Historians who wrote his story, Suetonius and Cassius Dio, had their own agendas. Under later emperors who needed to blacken the name of the Julian line to justify their own rule. Salacious detail, every act of cruelty and perversion, served that purpose. But could propaganda alone explain the bridge of boats, campaign, the horse consul? Modern scholarship offers competing theories. Some neurologists point to the severe illness as a likely cause of frontal lobe damage, psychosis, paranoia, and a loss of impulse control. Others see a method in the madness. Caligula was a radical populist, deliberately humiliating the aristocratic Senate to break its power and centralize authority in the emperor alone. Spending could be seen as a form of economic stimulus, putting Tiberius's hoarded wealth into circulation. His divine pretensions were not entirely new. Augustus had been deified after his death. Simply took the next logical, terrifying step. The truth is likely a poison blend of all these factors. A profoundly traumatized child, in a court of predation, granted unlimited power, and then physically broken by a catastrophic illness, was a perfect storm of personality disorder meeting absolute authority. The story of Caligula is not just a tale of ancient depravity. It is a clinical study of how the human psyche can fracture under pressure. Political lesson on the corrupting nature of power without check. And it is a human tragedy of a life that began with such bright promise, by trauma and sickness into a nightmare for an entire civilization. Back across 2,000 years, and we still ask the same question. Or a man made monstrous by circumstances? Perhaps the most terrifying answer is that he was both. His legacy is against the very idea of empire, from the Cryptoporticus reminding us that the line between a golden boy and a tyrant is perilously thin, and sometimes altogether. The golden boy who became a tyrant. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, please subscribe to our channel. Fascinating documentaries on history, science, civilizations, mysteries, and the untold stories that shaped our world.